Hi there, welcome to another short bite of eCritical. Today I'm going to show you the CCU admission form for those of you who work in the coronary care units. The vast majority of the functions and features of eCritical are available through any of the views that you can use either for that are specific for the CCU or for the ICU. I've provided a wide variety of different training videos that show you the essentials of using these aspects of eCritical. In today's talk, I want to go over the features for both the CCU admission form and also for the echocardiogram procedure, which is a new procedure that has been added to the system. Now, the reason we have a specific admission form for CCU patients is to allow us to capture a wide variety of information for analysis and also for clinical research for this cardiac population. The selection of the severity scores that are used in this admission form were selected by cardiologists for the cardiologists who are going to be using the system in CCUs. Now, one of the greatest advantages of the MediVision system is it is very dynamic. We can make changes to it at any time, and it also allows you to add and subtract severity scores as a group of clinicians you think is important. So if you decide that you don't want to do a specific form, well, that's absolutely fine, and if you want to add something, that's fine too. These things can all be done. The point of having an admission form is to allow you to provide the attending physician or is designate, if that's deemed appropriate, to be to enter in some physician-specific information that cannot be captured from the system alone. There is a great deal of data that is collected by the MediVision system, and most of that information, that data, is used in calculating a wide variety of different metrics and severity scores, but there is some things that are specific that only a human being and specifically only a clinician can know and can enter. So that is why these forms are here, and that is why the forms have to be filled out on every patient on admission. And that's why it's important when you get a request to fill in or complete a form that you may have missed, that you do it as quickly as possible. Now, the easiest way to get to the cardiac admission form is on the main page of the MediVision system after you log in. You'll see on the top row there's a list of buttons that's starting from the far left. It starts with GPL, ICU admission, cardiac admission. And if you click on that cardiac admission button, it will open up the form for you to use. Alternatively, if you need to know whether or not a form has been filled out or not, you can click on the next row down. There is a series of tabs, and on the far near the end of the list of tabs, there is a cardiac attending MD tab that when you click on that, it opens up a form which shows you a button that allows you to enter the admission form, and you can see that below it there is a little red dot. This red dot will tell you if the form has been filled in or not. Once you've completed the filling in the form, the dot turns from red to green, and then that way you can quickly see whether or not you've done all your charting that you need to do. Once you open the form, the first option list that you'll be presented with is a list of different categories for the patients that are admitted to the CCU. Now, this is not intended to be an exhaustive list, and sometimes a patient that you're admitting won't apply to any of these categories. It is understood that in those cases, then you're just going to simply click the bottom checkbox that says none of the above, and that should be sufficient. But for those patients that are admitted for a variety of different conditions, such as critical illness, ischemic disease, or heart failure, there are specific severity scores that you need to fill in. If you click the for example, the ischemic disease button checkbox, the GRACE score button becomes active, and you can see that now a red dot is present, indicating that it has yet to be filled in. In order to open the GRACE score form, click on the button GRACE score, and it'll open up the next next form. This form is the GRACE score. Now, you will notice that there's a certain amount of information on here that you might initially think should be automatically captured by the system. But unfortunately, because Medivision does not extend into the emergency department, and the GRACE score requires that the initial vital signs, blood pressure, creatinine that were present at the time they came into the emergency department, then there is no way for the system to capture that information automatically. If it could, we would just have it captured automatically, and then you could be done with it. So this information you're going to have to provide for yourself. The amount of information is I think, relatively minimal. Age, heart rate, admission, blood pressure, creatinine from admission, not the admission to the CCU, but admission in the emergency department, their Phillips class, whether or not they had a cardiac arrest, what ST segment deviation they had, and whether their enzymes were elevated. Once you've completed that, it can give you the GRACE mortality scores for in-hospital and their mortality risk. Once you save and close the previous form, you'll be taken back to the main page, which allows you to select additional relevant patient categories. So, for example, in this case, let's say the patient has heart failure in addition to their ischemic disease. You'd click on the heart failure checkbox, and the effect score button would become active as well. Clicking on the effect score button allows the form to open up. As you're probably well aware, the effect score also collects a certain amount of information from admission that's not readily available to Medivision, but also some demographics, some patient history information that's relevant for calculating the scores. As with the GRACE score, you fill in the information in order to complete it, and then once you've finished filling it in, you click on the Save and Close button in order to close the form and save the changes that you've made. After you've closed the effect score form, if you've been filling it out, or the GRACE form if you filled it out, it goes back again to the main page, and if the patient is classified as critically ill, then the final score that you may be asked to complete is the Apache score. Now, the Apache score is a ICU specific severity score that is used to calculate unit-wide mortality risk, and is included in the ICU forms that all of the intensive care physicians have to fill in. So this form is basically a duplicate of that form that the intensive care physicians have to fill in. The form itself is relatively easy to fill in. You need to complete a GCS. You need to specify the type of admission and whether the patient is admitted as a readmission to the CCU within that hospitalization, and then also a number of different chronic health conditions. In case you're not certain whether a specific health score or health condition, what that means, you can see that each of the conditions are underlined. And whenever you're in Medivision and you see a label that is underlined, it's just like a hyperlink. You can click on that button or on that link, and it'll open up a box that will give you more explanations about what do we mean by chronic dialysis, cirrhosis, diabetes, heart failure, and so forth. As you scroll down the form, the final section is the diagnosis. Now, in the severity of illness is calculated in part by the diagnosis for the admission, which should make sense to you. In order to do it, in order to fill in the admission diagnosis on this form, the first step you go through is you select the type of diagnosis. Was this a patient who was admitted for non-operative reasons, or a person admitted after a procedure or an operation? Now, in a CCU environment, those are less likely to be. It's less likely to be operative. And you can see on the right-hand side an explanation of what we mean by an operative or non-operative diagnosis. You select the button for the operative or non-operative, and then the next step will be a number of questions that will open up. Depending on your answers, will gradually fill in more and more detail until it comes to a specific diagnosis. Once you've selected a diagnosis, the form will be that you'll have completed the form. The admission diagnosis box will be filled in with the diagnosis that you've selected, and then you click Save and Close, and you're done. And that's all there is to it. Lastly, I'd like to just quickly demonstrate for you the echocardiogram bedside form that is a new addition to the Metavision procedure family. Now, back on the main screen, if you select the Procedures button, which is next to the MD Cardiac Admission button, it will open up a form that gives you a list of a variety of different procedures buttons that you can select. And so, as you can see on the fourth row at the end, there's the Bedside Echo button. Clicking on that will open up that form. The Bedside Echo form is relatively straightforward to fill in. At the top, you first need to select the date and time that you performed the procedure. This would be exactly like you would do in a paper form. You need to write your date and time that you've done the procedure at the top of the page. Next, you select your indication for whatever the reason for your completing the echo, and then list the supervision. If you're an attending physician, this area is irrelevant for you because you're not being supervised. If you're a fellow or a resident, then you need to fill in this information. The rest of the form is relatively straightforward, and it's just a series of quick drop-down menus and questions that you need to fill in order to provide the requested information. After you've completed the form, just click the Save and Close button that's at the lower right-hand side, and the form will be saved, and you can move on to other things. And that's all there is really to it. The new CCU form for bedside echocardiogram is available both in the ICU forms and also on this CCU side. So if you're in an ICU or a CVICU performing a bedside echo, then you can also enter in the procedure in Metavision there as well using your own login. The admission forms are meant to be filled in specifically by attending physicians, or if as a group of clinicians they feel that either fellows or nurse practitioners can fill them in, then that's left to their prerogative. But it is important that the form is filled in as soon as possible, so that both you don't forget to fill in these things and in a timely fashion, and also because it will permit when the patient is discharged, it will permit the file to be closed, so that the information doesn't remain in the system, taking up hard drive space. If you have any questions or concerns about the form, please feel free to contact any member of the eCritical team, myself, or any one of the physician super users in the Edmonton or Calgary zones. Thank you very much.